Good morning, everyone. We are in Mishna and Meiser Sheni, Perek Gimel, Chapter 3, Mishnah Yud, Mishnah 10. So we learned previously that if you have Meiser Sheni, that's in Yerushalayim, the actual Meiser Sheni produce in Yerushalayim, you may not you may not redeem it inside Yerushalayim itself. When it's in Yerushalayim, you may not redeem it. But if it becomes tameh, if it becomes impure, you may redeem it. So now, coming off that, the Mishnah says the following case: Halakuach b'kesef ma'aser sheni shenitma. Something that was bought with ma'aser sheni money that became tameh. Meaning, you had your original ma'aser sheni produce that you separated. You transferred its sanctity onto money. You bought the money to Yerushalayim. You did what you're supposed to do. You bought food with it. Now, the food that you buy with ma'aser sheni money, that gets the sanctity of ma'aser sheni. You got to treat it. You have to treat it accordingly. If it becomes tameh, you're not allowed to eat it. Now the question is: now that it became tameh, you're not allowed to eat it. Can you redeem it? Is it any different than the original ma'aser sheni or not? So the Tanna Kama, the first opinion of the Mishnah stated, says yipada. It gets redeemed. It's redeemed. Transfer the sanctity off the impure food that got the sanctity of ma'aser sheni from the money that it was bought with, and now transfer it back onto money, or I think onto other food also could work. Now, Rabbi Yehuda says, you cover. Nope, you can't do that. You have to bury it. According to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, when you went ahead and you took the ma'aser sheni money and you bought food with it, that's really the final step. That's really the final step. You mean that's how the mitzvah is done? You know, you'd have the original ma'aser sheni sanctity from the original produce, transfer it onto money, take the money, buy food. Everything's been done. I mean, you're supposed to eat it too, but everything's basically been done with the actual, with the original produce. It's considered nasa mitzvah. It's considered like the mitzvah has been completed, and therefore, according to Yehuda, you can't redeem it again. So what do you do with it? You can't eat it. You can't use it for anything. So you'd have to leave it around to rot. Rabbi was concerned if you leave it around to rot, somebody may come to eat it. And therefore, his opinion is you cover, you bury it. But his opinion is like that because of the fact that he holds there's nothing more you can do with this. Once you've gone through the full process of dealing with the sanctity of the ma'aser sheni money, and the full process of that would be you've taken the ma'aser sheni money and spent it on food, then that's it. There's no more to do. There's no more transferring the sanctity anymore. That's Yehuda's opinion. So that's the argument. The first opinion, which is the anonymous opinion called the Tanna Kama, which typically means the majority opinion, is that you could redeem that which was bought ma'aser sheni money if it became tameh, like the ma'aser sheni itself. Yehuda says no. Ma'aser sheni itself, you could redeem if it became impure, but not that which was bought with ma'aser sheni money. Amr lo Rabbi Yehuda. So the sages, meaning those represented in the Tanna Kama, said to Rabbi Yehuda, Uma im ma'aser sheni atzmai shenitma. We know that by ma'aser sheni itself, the original ma'aser sheni produce that was separated as ma'aser sheni, when it becomes tameh, when it becomes impure, harehu nifta, you can redeem it. Halakuach b'kesef ma'aser sheni shenitma. Something that was bought with ma'aser sheni money that became tameh. Shouldn't it follow that it should also be able to be redeemed? The assumption of the Rabbanan is that the original ma'aser sheni produce should have stricter laws when it comes to redemption than that which its sanctity was transferred onto, meaning to the money and then the money onto the food. So the original ma'aser sheni, which should have stricter laws of redemption, you could redeem it when it becomes impure. All the more so, you should be able to redeem the which was bought with ma'aser sheni money that has on it the sanctity was transferred onto it. It should be able to be redeemed when it becomes tameh. Omar lahem, Yehuda responded back to the rabbis, no, that's not a good argument. I'll tell you why. And his point is going to be that if I can find you a leniency that we have by the ma'aser sheni produce itself that you do not have by something bought with ma'aser sheni money. If you say by ma'aser sheni itself that you can redeem it when it's impure in Yerushalayim. You know why? Because we find another leniency. We find that the Meiser Sheni itself has a leniency. Shekenu nifte batar b'richuk mokem. Because you can redeem it when it's pure outside of Yerushalayim. Meaning, if you have your Meiser Sheni produce and it's tar, it's perfectly good. You could take Yerushalayim and eat it there, but you don't want to. You want to redeem it. You could, as long as it's outside of Yerushalayim. So that's what we find by the original produce itself. And therefore, where I have that leniency, as we're going to see, that I can redeem it. I can redeem the original Meiser produce outside of Yerushalayim. I can do that. So because I can do that, I could also redeem it when it becomes tamei in Yerushalayim. Will you say the same thing by something bought with Meiser money? That it cannot be redeemed when it's pure, when it's far away from Yerushalayim? What means is like this. We had in a previous Mishnah that, as we know, the produce, the money, right? The money that you have transferred the Meiser Sheni onto, right? Yeah, the original Meiser Sheni produce, separated Meiser Sheni, then you transferred the sanctity from it onto money. What do you do with that money? You take that money you bought, you spend it on food in Yerushalayim. May you spend it on food outside of Yerushalayim? No, you may not. You're not supposed to do that. And as a matter of fact, the Mishnah, we had a previous Mishnah that said that if you intentionally went and did that, and you decided to take the Meiser Sheni money, and you knew it was Meiser Sheni money, and you bought food outside of Yerushalayim, then the halacha is you have to take that food up to Yerushalayim itself. You cannot transfer the sanctity from that food back onto money to make it easier to bring up to Yerushalayim. You can't do that. So here we have a stringency by something bought with Meiser Sheni money that we don't have the original Meiser Sheni itself. The original Meiser Sheni itself, we don't say you have to take it up to Yerushalayim. You can redeem it onto money. You can transfer the sanctity onto money and just carry up the money. But something bought with the money of Meiser Sheni, it was bought with money of Meiser Sheni outside Yerushalayim, which you weren't supposed to do, but you did it. And when you do it intentionally, it works in the sense that the sanctity is transferred from the money to the produce, but you cannot now transfer from that produce back onto money. That produce has to be carried up to Yerushalayim. So it comes out that I have a stringency by something bought with Meiser Sheni money by the original Meiser Sheni itself. There's a leniency that I have in the Meiser Sheni itself that doesn't exist by what was bought with Meiser Sheni money. Says Rabbi Yehuda, so you can't argue. You can't argue with me anymore. That if you tell me that if the original Meiser Sheni that became impure in Yerushalayim, you can redeem it. So, and that should have stricter laws. So all the more so, I should be able to redeem that which was bought with Meiser Sheni, that it only has transferred Kedusha onto it, and it became impure in Yerushalayim, I should be able to redeem it. Says Rabbi Yehuda, that premise isn't correct. Because I can show you that the original Meiser Sheni has a leniency that food bought with Meiser Sheni money doesn't. And therefore, you cannot tell me that therefore the leniency of being able to redeem it when tamei in Yerushalayim applies also to that which was bought with the money. You can't make that argument anymore. You can't make this argument that my original Meiser Sheni has stricter should be stricter when it comes to redemption than that which was bought Meiser Sheni money. I show you an example where it's not that way, says Rabbi Yehuda. I'll show you an example where Meiser Sheni itself can be redeemed outside of Yerushalayim, while that which was bought Meiser Sheni money can't. So you see that it comes out that which is bought is stricter. And therefore, if it's stricter, we can actually say that there's another stringency that we have by that which was bought Meiser Sheni money, and that is, if it became Tamei Yerushalayim, you can't redeem it. Although the original Meiser Sheni became Tamei, you would be able to redeem it. So that's what we do this argument back. At the end of the day, the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha is like the Tanakh, the first opinion, and therefore, if the food that you bought Meiser Sheni with in Yerushalayim became Tamei in Yerushalayim, you would be able to redeem it. You can transfer the sanctity from it onto money or onto other food. So the Chavetz, okay, now we're Klal Daled, the fourth chapter of the Chavetz Chaim laws in Lashon Harah, and we are in paragraph Yud, paragraph 10. The previous paragraph, the Chavetz Chaim said, if you see someone who has bad character traits, perhaps he doesn't realize how serious these things are, and therefore it's something that either he does with the seriousness and he's done tshuva for it. Maybe you don't know, maybe he's regretted what he did, his behavior based on these bad traits, like getting angry when he shouldn't. Or maybe he doesn't realize that getting angry is such a serious thing. Okay, va'afal pikein, nonetheless, even though you cannot go and tell other people about his bad temper and consider him a wicked person for being that way, va'afal pikein, nonetheless, if a person sees on someone a negative trait, the goin gaiva, such as arrogance, haughtiness, a kas, he has bad temper, a shari midas rice, or other bad traits, or that he doesn't spend his time studying Torah, he wastes his time. So again, these are all bad traits, or things that people don't necessarily realize is something that's serious, or it could be something that they've regretted. And therefore, as you said before, to go telling everybody about it, you can't do that. Nonetheless, you would be permitted to tell this to your child or to your students, and to actually warn them not to associate with him, if that's what you feel is necessary, so not to learn from his ways. Again, in a situation where you feel this is necessary to do, to tell other people about it so that they don't learn from his ways. Because the main point of the Torah's prohibition of not speaking Lashon Hara, not speaking bad about someone, even if it's true, that is when your intention is to put him down or to rejoice in his degradation. Meaning, to build yourself up, make yourself feel good, build yourself up because you pushed him down. But if your intention is to prevent someone else from learning from these bad ways, pashat mutter, there's no question it's permissible. Mitzvah namiyika, there's even a mitzvah to prevent people from developing bad habits from others. However, in this case, or in similar cases meaning where you will speak negatively about someone, but halacha says you're allowed to. It is very appropriate that when you are speaking badly to another person, that you explain why you're doing so. So that the listener doesn't think that you can even do more. But if you just go over and say to tell a person, oh, this guy has a terrible temper, and your intention is to make sure you don't stick around with him and learn from that, but the listener may think that you're just speaking Lashon Hara. If you don't explain why you're doing this and why it's not Lashon Hara, this person is going to think that it's okay just to say negative things about others, and he's going to go and do the same thing where he's not supposed to. Another thing is that you shouldn't look like a person who's contradicting themselves. Because sometimes you're telling, let's say, your child, even if it's true, you can't speak Lashon Hara. It's very appropriate to train your children to stay away from speaking Lashon Hara. And now they see you're doing it yourself. So you're contradicting yourself. You're a hypocrite. So therefore, if you explain to them why it is you're doing it, so then you won't fall into that problem. So the Chavetz Chaim is giving us an example, telling us that although, again, speaking about people's bad traits is not something you can just go around telling people about, that's absolute Lashon Hara. But if there are people that you want to tell so that they don't learn from this person, that means you're not speaking Lashon Hara to put the person down, you're just trying to save someone else from developing a bad habit. Fine, that would be permissible to tell. But it's appropriate to explain why you're doing this so that the other person doesn't think that you're speaking Lashon Hara. Have a wonderful day.